Well, we have to look ahead to what could be an interesting tie against Real Madrid, especially with the form that they're in. But what could be something of a worrying future needs to be discussed on this morning's Arsenal News Show. Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys and girls from the episode of what is the Arsenal News Show. Joining you every single morning at 8 a.m. Usually it is 8:06. I'll be very honest. I had different surroundings this morning at the in-laws today, so apologies if the audio is not the usual silky smoothness of the studio. It can't be because I don't have my usual equipment here, but it's just today, back in the usual settings tomorrow. So do bear that in mind. But with it being Mothering Sunday, of course, there are duties to be had, and I'm looking forward to what's going on the rest of the day. I hope you're indeed enjoying yourselves this Sunday. I hope you've got plenty planned, a weekend off away from Arsenal action, of course. And thank you to all of you that are tuning in, of course, this morning. If you're wondering why the show didn't drop at the usual time, the clocks have gone forwards here in the UK. I did warn you, I did tell you. I shouldn't need anyone tweeting me, telling me, where's the show? Why did you do it early? This is the time that the show will be for those that are outside of those countries affected by the seasons rather changing and the clocks, of course, going forwards. But good morning to you all joining us live in the chat box. Thank you so much to all of you for being here. Black Shine, Matt G, Paul, Scouse Gooner. We've got Carlton and Tom and Zoom. We've got Hooded Gooner and Rowan, Kaiser, Paul, Shari, Carrie-Anne, Louis, Zoom, Jean and Stuart. We've got Nigel and Glenn. Good morning to you, to Martin and Josh, to Kim, to James, to John and Z. Good morning to you all. Thank you so much, as always, for tuning in. Really appreciate you all being here. Absolutely fantastic that it is, of course, a day where the clocks have gone forward. You've got up even earlier, and it's a Sunday. That is mad commitment. So thank you so much for your kind support on the channel, as always. Let's jump to today's stories, shall we? Arsenal take on Crystal Palace away from home today in WSL. Of course, Arsenal looking to maintain their second place spot in the table. The title race is gone at this stage. In fact, Arsenal kind of just hoping that Chelsea lose a game because they remain unbeaten after 17 matches. There are 5 to go during the course of what remains this season as well. But Chelsea 15 wins, 2 draws, 0 defeats. Arsenal are 8 points behind them in the table, level on points with Manchester United, but 7 points ahead now of Manchester City. And they just need to keep up their form, which has been excellent in the league outside of the cup competitions. It's been really, really good since Rene Slegers has, of course, taken over. And they need to get another 3 points against bottom of the league, Crystal Palace. Moving forwards, and speaking of Crystal Palace, well, Eddie Nketiah was on the score sheet yesterday as, the FA Cup will indeed witness a London club playing at Wembley in the semi-final. 3-0 for Palace against Fulham. Nottingham Forest going through on penalties against Brighton in a pretty competitive 0-0 game overall, which led to the penalty shootout. But either team could have snatched a result. And considering that Forest battered Brighton earlier on in the season, I think by 7 goals, Brighton would have been probably happy at full time if it was a league game, but it wasn't. It was a cup game, meaning it would go to penalties after, of course, extra time, and they could not take advantage of that situation. And Crystal Palace will join Nottingham Forest in the semi-finals, along with either one, of course, of Bournemouth, who play against Manchester City today, or Preston, who host Aston Villa. Will there be a championship side in the semi-finals rather of the FA Cup? We will wait and see. But Eddie Nketiah on the score sheet. Ebere Eze had an absolutely brilliant performance. A player, of course, that I know others are very keen on potentially seeing him become an Arsenal player in the summer. Ebere Eze was absolutely brilliant during this game and was probably the biggest reason, most certainly the biggest reason why they find themselves in a cup semi-final. In terms of Arsenal's Champions League opponents, of course, for the coming weeks, Real Madrid, they squeezed past Leganes at the Bernabeu. We saw Kylian Mbappe score not a free kick. There's a lot of discourse actually last night I saw just while scrolling the socials while I was in bed, and I didn't realise there's an account which is called Mbappe's not scored a free kick, and Mbappe scored from a free kick where kind of laid it off to Fran Garcia, who stopped the ball, and then he struck the ball into the bottom right hand corner. That's not a free kick goal. That's just not a free kick goal. But Kylian Mbappe did score twice on the day. The first one was from a penalty. Jude Bellingham with the second goal on the day for Real Madrid, getting them an important 3 points in the race for the La Liga title. Barcelona, of course, are in action today. They are level on points with Real Madrid, but can go ahead of them by 3 points. They play Girona at the Camp Nou. But interestingly, a few absences from this game for Real Madrid. We hadn't seen Thibaut Courtois. He wasn't involved in the game, and I've just done a little bit of research around that, and there are suggestions that Thibaut Courtois is kind of resting, if you like, and he's going to be returning to the Real Madrid team for that game against Arsenal, but he's resting and looking after his fitness ahead of that game against Arsenal in the Champions League. There were concerns that Fran Garcia could be injured, but he started the game. Still no sign of Ferland Mendy. Of course, there was suggestions that during the international break, he had done plenty of work on his recovery and he could make it back for the game against Arsenal. But at the moment, it looks like that Fran Garcia will still be that player that is operating, of course, as the starting left back for Los Blancos. Elsewhere, they did rest quite a few players, of course, in this game. Vinicius Jr., Federico Valverde, Rodrigo, Aurelien Tchouameni all didn't start this game. They rested them all. Luka Modric started, Brahim Diaz started, Arda Güler starting as well. So plenty of interesting selections by Ancelotti ahead of a big game against Arsenal in a couple of weeks' time. Moving forwards, I can tell already I'm in a house where there's a dog because my allergies are starting to play up. This is kind of the interesting story of the day. This is the story where I'm a little concerned about Arsenal's future because, according to David Ornstein, Liverpool are exploring Malaga as a potential club to begin a multi-club model for FSG. Now, we know that there have been plenty of clubs involved in multi-club models over, well, the last fair few years. Manchester City, of course, are a part of the City Football Group, a massive collective of clubs. We know that others like Chelsea have begun to grow their portfolio of clubs with Strasbourg, for example. And now Liverpool, it seems, are joining that group as they explore to buy a majority sharehold of Malaga. Malaga, of course, a side that have fallen quite considerably in Spanish football. I remember the days of Champions League late defeats against Borussia Dortmund, you might remember. But Malaga have fallen away and currently playing in the Segunda division during the campaign that they find themselves in. But they are 15th in the Segunda table after 32 matches. There's no chance of a promotion for them this season. I don't think they'll be relegated, but they aren't the same Malaga side, of course, of old that some of us will remember that Santi Cazorla, of course, was bought from by Arsenal as well all those years ago. It's something I think that we need to think about. It's something I think that the owners need to be very conscious. We know that Mikel Arteta has spoken quite interestingly before about multi-club models. In fact, I'll see if I can find the quotes from Mikel Arteta on multi-club models, because it was a really interesting point that he made. He said, and this is going back to 2025 January, when asked about it, he said, well, that's something that a lot of clubs have at the moment. So that restriction in the country has provoked that many other clubs have now, like sister clubs or multi-club systems, to be able to do that. So looking ahead in the future, it's something basically to explore, because obviously with the actual system, it's very, very difficult. Every club is very different in the way that they are set up, and the clubs that they have are picked are various. But in our way, it's obviously a decision from our ownership and the board to understand what is the best thing for the club in the future. My involvement in the team and the squads, I have full trust in what the club has to do there, and they have to decide. If the club wants my opinion, then I'm more than happy to give that, but my focus is on my team. So this was, of course, in kind of connection to questions around clubs being able to circumvent post-Brexit rules by making the use of those multi-club models, where that's like signing young players, of course, that clubs like Arsenal would not be able to sign without those multi-club model kind of presences, if you like. John says, how many clubs are in the City Football Group? Oh, that's a great question. How many can I name that are in it? Okay, so you've got Girona in Spain, you've got Troyes in France, you've got Lommel SK in Belgium, I think. You've got Montevideo in, I want to say Uruguay, maybe. New York City FC. You've got, is it Sydney? I think they've got Sydney in Australia. I'm pretty sure, or Melbourne. Sorry, it's Melbourne City, isn't it? Thank you, Nketiah. Yes, Melbourne, not Sydney. Melbourne City FC in Australia. They've got a Japanese club. I think they've got a Chinese club as well. All clubs part of the City Football Group. So Man City, New York City FC, Melbourne City FC, Montevideo, Uruguay, I was right, Troyes, Loma-Lesque, clubs with partial ownership, Girona, Mumbai City in India, Yokohama F. Marinos in Japan, Palermo in Italy, 94%, Bahia in Brazil, Shenzhen Peng City in China. Actually, I've got two Chinese clubs, Sichuan Junyu in China as well, and Club Bolivar in Bolivia are a partner club as well. So quite a lot of clubs. Palermo, I forgot about. I remember there was a big story about them. I think it was about a year ago, talking about where they were going to take over. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 that they've got 100% ownership of, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 that they've got partial ownership of in that City Football Group. So there you go. Very, very interesting stuff, and it's something I think Arsenal need to be aware of. I mean, Sheffield United have got multi-club models, Brighton have got multi-club models. I think Burnley might as well. It's things that clubs that are not on the same standing of Arsenal have their links to. So it's not, and of course we know that Arsenal have got their links with the Colorado Rapids, who are also owned by KSE, but that's kind of through circumstance than like a specific MCM strategy. And so I think that's something to consider. You're correcting my pronunciation of Montevideo, and then Adam's gone for a Montevideo, and Montevideo says Martin as well. I mean, yeah, Montevideo. Like, I'm probably really wrong with that, but I do my best. So we move forwards anyway. But yeah, I'm sure we'll have some questions in part 2 on the multi-club model. But I do think it's something that ultimately that needs to change for Arsenal, and something they need to be very aware of, and moving forwards they need to try and look into. Right, let's go to part 2 and your questions then right after this. Hello and welcome to part 2 of today's show, where of course we'll be tackling some of your questions again. For those that weren't aware, we are of course an hour earlier than usual, with it being daylight savings here in the UK and other territories as well. And of course I'm currently in a different surrounding, so I'm hoping the audio is fine. I hope you can hear me fine and that it's coming through all right as well. It should be. There's no reason why it shouldn't be coming through okay this morning. Right, let's take some of your questions, shall we, in the chat box. Cody says, not a question, but we should buy Bordeaux since they are financially in the dumps. And then whenever we move a player from Bordeaux to Arsenal, we can do the reverse Koscielny transfer announcement of the pulling off the Bordeaux shirt to reveal the Arsenal shirt, of course. The issue with buying clubs that are in financial peril is that they can be quite costly. I understand kind of the frustration, not frustration, that's the wrong word. I understand the theory behind buying clubs that have, of course, got financial issues, because it makes them easier to acquire. And of course, any club you buy is probably going to have some incentive to join up as part of an MCM model. But I think that Bordeaux are in such a poor situation, they might not be the best when it comes to I think was there even suggestions that they could have been kicked out of the French league? Let me see if I can check it. Yeah, Bordeaux in 2024 filed for bankruptcy after FSG, of course, Liverpool, ended takeover talks. So FSG have been looking into this multi-club model idea for quite some time. So I'm gonna see. I don't know where it's Bordeaux club situation. I'm kind of curious now what's going on with Bordeaux. Um, Following the continued financial decline and the inability to find new investment or ownership, the club are forced into filing for bankruptcy and relinquishing their professional status. This action forced the DNCG and the LFP to sanction the club with an administrative relegation to the Championnat National. So yeah, I mean it's a really sad situation in Bordeaux right now. I'm not sure what their current league status is. They're currently playing in. They're currently playing where? They're playing in Group B of the Championnat National 2, which is not. I don't think anyway. I might be wrong, but I don't think that's Ligue 2. Um, so yeah, I mean, goodness gracious me. So currently really, really far down. League National 2, Group B, formerly known as the Championship. The league serves as the fourth tier of French football league system behind Liga, Ligue 2, and the Championnat National, contested by 48 clubs. And they're not even like leading this league. They're currently fifth in Group B. They've actually lost their last 5 games in a row, just looking at their form as well. They were having quite a good start to the season, it seems, and have fallen away quite considerably. Had they have won those 5 games, instead of losing those 5 games, they'd currently be sitting top of the table by 9 points. So really sad situation. So yeah, it's very difficult to look at a club like Bordeaux and think, is that the right move? Do you go for somebody like that who's obviously had these issues financially and bail them out? Does that restrict what you can do as a club like Arsenal? I don't know, is the honest answer. I don't know how much it will restrict us, but it's definitely a club that needs to be back amongst the top clubs in France again because it's got an incredible history. Andy Carroll is on form for them. Yes, that is a great story as well, is that Andy Carroll, of course, has gone to play um, for Bordeaux. This season, he's got 8 goals and 2 assists in 14 games for Bordeaux. So fair play to him. 36 years of age, but he has been out with a hamstring injury this season, perhaps unsurprisingly. He hasn't been as on the form recently. He's only scored 1 goal in the last 4 months. But he did have a hamstring injury. He started off the season really, really well. Um, Oh my goodness, they beat a team called Chateaubriand in his first game. They drew 2, or they drew 2-2. I feel like Chateaubriand is something else. Isn't it like a steak? A Chateaubriand. It's spelled slightly differently, but yeah, it is a steak. I thought it was. Right, let's go to the chat box and go through a few more of your questions. Maximia says, Tom, what are the cons of an MCM? We understand the pros, but surely there have to be some cons for owners not to consider it that seriously. Well, of course, the first one is going to be a financial investment. Like, it's going to cost you a lot of money to buy a stake in a club. You're then going to have to take on a lot of the responsibility. If you fully own another club, you're taking on massive responsibilities when it comes to that. That means more people. That means people that you're unfamiliar with, people you have not hired that you're taking on. It's very complicated. It's very convoluted in terms of running a multi-club model system, and you will have to employ a lot of people. As Josh says, that's a lot of time and energy for ownership of a football club. You would have to employ a lot of people to delegate things to. You're stretching yourself thinner, of course, in terms of your resources amongst other clubs. But I mean, teams have been able to successfully kind of go into these partnerships with other teams, other clubs as well. And that creates problems in itself. So yeah, and if that club has any issues, of course, you are also involved in that, and you're also taking on. So you're kind of like keeping an eye on what they're doing. But the City kind of situation is really interesting. I got some really interesting stories while out in Girona earlier on in the campaign, speaking to people at the club. and on the partnership with Manchester City, like Sverre Nipan, the Norwegian kid that Arsenal have been keen on, and we know that Girona were another part of. I know a lot of people assumed that that was Manchester City kind of wanting to sign a player of great talent in Nipan for themselves at one of their feeder clubs, if you like, in Girona. But I was speaking to some people at Girona, and effectively I was told that Sverre Nipan is a player that is very much the player that they want. It's not that Man City want Nipan and that Girona would buy him to develop him and then sell him to City. It's a player that Girona want as themselves. So, yeah, I think it's very, very interesting indeed that kind of how the multi-club models work and how clubs are viewed by the fans of those clubs, how Arsenal would be viewed by a club that look to purchase them, and how that goes down. It'd be interesting to speak to people, I guess, at different clubs who are part of those multi-club models. Hoodie Gooner says, thoughts on the situation with Reading? I got a feel for those fans. No club deserves to go through that. Still don't get how the FA allows this still to happen, especially after so many others. It's a really, as again, we're talking about kind of clubs situations now, and it's a financial nightmare for them, and how Reading are going to survive this, if indeed they're going to be able to survive this. It looks very, very, very difficult to kind of deal with. They've been removed. So Reading FC have removed from the embargo after publishing their accounts. This is a story from back in, it's on the 25th of March. So on the Reading Chronicle, it says Reading have been removed from their EFL embargo after publishing their financial accounts over 12 months late. The Royals weren't able to buy players due to a breach of profit and sustainability, but were also under a fresh embargo for the past 6 months due to failing to publish their accounts for the 22-23 campaign, in which they were relegated from the Championship. However, finally, this has been sorted, with the club posting pre-tax losses of 21.7 million, which, when you consider that Arsenal have posted 17.1 million in losses, that's crazy for a League One club. Despite revenue increasing from the season prior. While this alone does not help Noel Hunt's side as the window is closed, it should suggest that a clearing of the books, which would help any incoming buyer and mean from the summer the club could re-enter the market for players. Other companies connected to Dow Young, such as RFC Bearwood Limited, also posted their accounts. The deadline for last season's accounts falls inside the next 6 days, meaning they would return to the EFL embargo page should they fail to publish their 23-24 accounts by March 31st. So they've got until tomorrow to post their accounts. We will wait and see if that happens. I haven't got any suggestions or any stories coming up right now that they have published those. There's a statement on the club website. And it says, regarding the ongoing litigation case with Mr. Kuhig on the last Friday's commercial court hearing, the club can confirm that a formal proposal for alternative security has been made to Mr. Kuhig via his legal representatives. It is hoped that the proposal will be agreed quickly in resolution of the current security impasse to facilitate the sales process. I know that Charles is, of course, very close to this. Charles Watts, who's covered Reading in his time as well and has spoken about this quite at length. I think he's posted quite a few things on his own X page about it as well. It is mad to see a club that were in the Premier League not so long ago. Arsenal were beating in the League Cup 7-5, you remember as well. But it is mad, absolutely crazy. And yeah, I'm just seeing a tweet from Charles from 19 years ago today. Promotion secured at Leicester. Watch the highlights in full. Reading were promoted to the Premier League. And Charles says, I was at this game working as a junior reporter for the Reading Chronicle. It was an unbelievable day, the day this record-breaking Reading team and a fantastic club won promotion to the Premier League. 19 years on, this wonderful club could be just weeks away from being thrown out of the Football League because of a crooked owner who has run it into the ground and so far refused to sell. No football fan should ignore Reading's tragic plight under the disgrace that is Dow Young. It could happen to your club next. And please follow Sell Before We Die, spelled DAI, to learn more and help keep the pressure on Young. The clock is ticking. It's a story that I think all football fans, as Charles rightly points out, needs to be aware of. We need to be aware of clubs that are in these situations and how these situations are allowed to take place, how they're allowed to happen. It's incredibly concerning and worrying. So yeah, also says Reading has to be sold by Friday or be expelled from the league. Nuts, absolutely crazy. Zane says, with the increasing tactical homogenization across top leagues, pressing systems, inverted fullbacks, and positional play, do you think we're losing football's regional identities? What do you think the implications could be if so? It's a really interesting question because, I mean, I don't really think that necessarily we've got regional personalities on modern football clubs. Football clubs are very much a reflection of the coach and how the coaches play. And if you look across the Premier League right now, how many English managers are currently at Premier League clubs? Liverpool, Dutch; Arsenal, Spanish; Nottingham Forest, Portuguese; Chelsea, Italian; Manchester City, Spanish. Eddie Howe is at Newcastle currently. Ursula, Brighton; German; Fulham, Portuguese; Villa, Spanish; Bournemouth, Spanish; Brentford, Thomas Frank; Crystal Palace, German; Manchester United, Portuguese; Tottenham, Australian; Everton do have David Moyes, Scottish; West Ham United have got, who's West Ham United boss? Is it? It's not Lopetegui still? Or he got sacked? Who took over? Um, West Ham manager. That's really embarrassing. Graham Potter, of course. Completely forgot who West Ham's manager was. Graham Potter. So that's what, three so far? Brentford, Newcastle, and West Ham. Wolves, of course, as well. Wolves have got currently in charge. Pereira, is it Pereira? Not it's Vitor Pereira, isn't it? He's Portuguese as well. So another Portuguese, quite a few Portuguese coaches in the Premier League at the moment. Ipswich Town, McKenna, of course, English. Leicester, Ruud van Nistelrooy, Dutch, and Southampton have got. I mean, Southampton are doomed, absolutely doomed. Ivan Juric, currently Croatian. So yeah, I mean, they're just not reflections, are they? Really, of the clubs, really. And I mean, I don't really know what the what I mean, what type of identity are we really thinking of here now regarding clubs and their regional identities when you've got, owners, of course, that come from all over the world in these clubs, players that are not, players that are not really looking at. Um, Sorry, I don't know why I made it sound like then that Thomas Frank, who is of course Danish, is English. I just said Brentford, Thomas Frank, who is Danish, of course. You've got like these situations where I don't think regional identity is really, not that it's not important, but it's just not really like, I don't really I don't really know what to say to that. Like Arsenal's identity comes through their work in the community, how they support local businesses. It comes through their work with the Arsenal Foundation. That's the type of reputation, of course, the class, the historical value of Arsenal is about the community. I don't really know in terms of kind of regional identity or regional culture how this happens, you know? Um, I don't know. I'm not sure. So you'd have to give me some more information, I guess, and tell me what you think needs to change, or what we're losing in terms of that regional identity. Implications of that. I mean, clubs have got richer. Yes, there are some situations with clubs like Reading, of course. Thankfully, they seem to be in a much smaller minority, but overall, if you didn't have Brighton doing what they've done, if you didn't have Bournemouth doing what they've done, the growth of those clubs has come from outside influence. Um, Manchester City wouldn't have won leagues without their foreign investment, foreign ownership. You always kind of get into those weird situations with some very odd fans who think that the England manager should be English, or clubs should only have English players, or that it should be fans should be in the ground should be majority English supporters in the ground or whatever. That will happen naturally. I'd be very surprised if ever you got to a stage where the majority of fans inside the Emirates weren't English, but you have some very strange supporters who think the majority of fans should be like it should be illegal for that to be above or below a certain threshold. Like I know there's some very odd people out there, but I don't know really where I go with that question. It's a good question to ask because it's made me think, but I don't know really what the implications would be. Lee says, "Morning, Tom. I believe Havertz is on 275 to 285,000 pound per week. Will people above Arteta sanction 100 million transfers and perhaps 350,000 pound per week wages for Isak, with a similar earner being on the bench?" I don't think it's necessarily to do with Havertz or what Havertz is on. Isak, of course, if you're going to pay a £100 million fee for a player, they're going to be on a big amount of money anyway. So I don't think it's got anything to do with Havertz's presence at the club, to be honest, at all. Whether they move for Isak, whether Arsenal move for Isak will be due to be with the fact that they feel that he's worth the investment, and whether or not he, of course, wants to come, and whether or not Newcastle are open to selling. But I don't really think that. I don't think that's the way forwards. Ant says we have the advantage in having a manager we know genuinely loves the club, and he manages and doesn't just see it as a job either. Rich says, I think regional identities are much more a thing further down the triangle of of kind of the English football pyramid, if you like. I think for Arsenal, like Inter Milan, it's very much an international club. Yeah, I'd kind of love like an example of what it means to have regional identity. I don't really know what. Tell me what a club looks like if it has regional identity compared to a club that doesn't have regional identity. That's what I would like to kind of know to be able to answer the question better. Hoodie Gooner says, any specific clubs that you would prefer going into a multi-club ownership with? Personally, although unrealistic, I would love Borussia Mönchengladbach or Monaco. Yeah, I mean, that's just not going to happen, is it? Like, you're mainly looking at clubs further down, the footballing pyramid, like Man City, when they partnered with Girona. It was before they were kind of in a Champions League situation. The same can be said for kind of Liverpool with Malaga. They're looking at a club further down the footballing pyramid right now that have still got a very decent size. I mean, you probably want to look at kind of like the third tier of Spanish football, or the second tier of Spanish football, the second tier of Portuguese football, or Italian football. Like, look at clubs. Maybe not Italian football. A lot of issues in Italian football, but like second tier of Spanish football. If you have a look at the Segunda table, at the clubs that are there, you've got some pretty big teams like Real Zaragoza. You think about Real Zaragoza used to be in European competition on regular. Sporting Gijón, Eibar, Deportivo de la Coruña, Granada as well down there also. So there's quite a fair few clubs. We're in Mallorca these days. Where are Mallorca? Are they in the top tier? I don't think they were. La Liga. Tell my knowledge of football. Oh, Mallorca, goodness me, they're eighth in La Liga right now. See, that tells you where my La Liga knowledge has dropped off a cliff ever since moving into just Arsenal-specific stuff, where I've just fallen away from following Spanish football almost entirely. But yeah, Mallorca, like, fair play. Brilliant. Love that. My Spanish team are Espanyol, so I always try and keep an eye on them, but they're usually pretty much a yo-yo club these days. And says, Tom, who would you identify a perfect club for? We've kind of done that. Oh, sorry, but yeah, we kind of tackled that question, didn't we? More than interested, did someone just call Arteta a legend at the club? Is he heck? I don't think someone called him a legend, did they? I mean, he's not a legend, but I always do find it a little bit stranger if someone even suggests the idea of him being a legend, someone would lose their head. Imagine getting that triggered by that suggestion. Where is that comment about Arteta? I think it was just like, we have a manager who loves the club. I think that's what was said. Imagine getting triggered so much by that, but people thought it was like someone calling him a legend. Anyway, John says, Tom, I'm sure that you are always thinking ahead. So how do you see this channel changing over the next 5 years? Wow. I don't know, John. I kind of just take things as they come. I don't really have like a 5-year plan necessarily for the channel. This is very much like, in many ways, a hobby and a community that I enjoy. I have my job. My job is kind of always my priority because it's what pays the bills. But yeah, look, I've got some plans in the short-term future. You'll be seeing some things change, around the channel. So I'm excited for that. But yeah, just continue doing what we're doing. All I care about is making sure that there is a community here for people that are happy to be respectful to one another, that they feel like they can post an opinion that is put across respectfully and is not going to be mocked for that, if it's indeed done in a respectful way. As soon as people start losing the respect, as soon as people start trolling in chat boxes and stuff, it's just not what we're about. So it's just kind of maintaining that safe space, if you like. Paul says, I'd like a Beveren or a Hercules, a Granada type group. I mean, I don't think Beveren are even a club anymore, are they? Beveren, Arsenal partnership. I don't know if Beveren are even a club anymore, to be honest. Between 2001 and 2006, the club had a cooperation agreement with English Premier League club Arsenal. KSK Beveren. So Beveren is a Belgian football club from Beveren in East Flanders that was founded number 2,300 with yellow and blue colours. Founded in 1935. Doesn't say what league they're playing in. The men's branch of the club was temporarily discontinued in 2010 until 2022. Only the women's team played at the Royal Belgian Football Association under founding number 2300. In 2022, after an agreement with Vaslin Beveren, the founding number was released again for men's football. So the club has been active since the 22-23 season again with a men's team. KSK Beveren is the first football club in Belgium that is completely controlled by supporters and is bound by the principles of the supporters direct. There you go. Yeah, they had a partnership with Arsenal. It says on Wikipedia there is an Arsenal controversy page. So between 2001 and 2006, the club had a cooperation agreement with English club Arsenal. Several players were loaned between the teams and friendlies were played. The agreement expired on July 1st, 2006. Subsequent to an investigation by BBC Television's Newsnight, FIFA requested the English Football Association investigate the relationship between the two clubs. In 2001, Belgian police concluded that a loan of over 1.5 million euros had been made by Arsenal to the company Goal, which helped secure Beveren's financial position. Newsnight have alleged this may breach club ownership rules under FIFA regulations. The accusation is refuted by Arsenal, who states that the payment was an interest-free loan and has no effect on the administration of the club. The FA and FIFA cleared both clubs of any wrongdoing. Several players have been loaned between the two clubs and had trials. Only Emmanuel Aboué completed a permanent move between the clubs in this time period from Beveren to Arsenal. So there you go. Some interesting history lessons going on this morning. You can tell it's the international break, can't you? Natalie says, I heard that the contract will not be extended of Harry Kane. Are you going to go and get him? I doubt it. I highly, highly doubt it, Natalie. Phoenix says, if you've targeted a multi-club ownership, then there are some great fallen giant French clubs with excellent youth academies. French football's probably a very good place to look for talent and clubs for that kind of situation. Vitesse are in a bad state, says Stephen. Yes, they are. There's a lot of issues with Vitesse from their kind of Chelsea partnership. Vitesse have been docked. This is a report from, when was this report out? 2024, April. An investigation by British newspaper The Guardian last year alleged Abramovich secretly funded Vitesse with more than $100 million. Chelsea, under Abramovich ownership, loaned a long list of players to Vitesse over several years, including Nemanja Matic and Mason Mount. That was alleged by The Guardian. So yeah, it's scary stuff. Multi-club models and partnerships, don't always, as I say, we're talking about the pros and cons. I guess there's that to think about as well. I think we're going to end the show there. Thank you so much, as always, for tuning in. Really appreciate your time. I hope you have an absolutely fantastic Sunday. Enjoy yourselves. Stay safe, stay well, stay happy and respectful. And as always, up the arse.